That's right. These are just people who want to help Americans. These are just people who want more benefits for people. They're compassionate, unlike these right-wingers. You know, they're white supremacists. By the way, is he a white supremacist? He's white. He doesn't even understand critical race theory. The moron doesn't even understand that he's part of the dominant white culture under critical race theory, under this Marxist agenda. It doesn't matter how righteous or self-righteous, in his case, that he is. It doesn't matter how much he claims to defend minorities and so forth. He's part of the white dominant society, but this moron doesn't get it.
This is where freedom rings.
If you believe in America, if you believe in the Constitution empowers us. It's a new day. America's back. America's back, and America's going to get strong again. We're going to defend America, and we're going to defend our interests.
Liberty's voice, Levin TV.
Hello, America. I'm Mark Levin, and this is Levin TV. There has been a clip I've been waiting to get to literally for a couple of months with Robert Reich. Now, why Robert Reich? Robert Reich, believe it or not, is a pseudo-intellectual in my view, but he's one of the so-called intellectuals behind this radical left movement, in my view, the American Marxist movement. And he even believes such things that the media in our country are actually biased toward conservatives, biased toward Republicans. Now, can you imagine living in his head? Can you imagine living in a world like that? I can't. But I want us to take a look at this together, and so we can work at unraveling this a little bit, because if you're in the media and you're one of the American Marxist mouthpieces in the media, you're a propagandist for the Democrat Party and these other movements, you're going to find Robert Reich to be convincing, because he justifies your ridiculous propaganda and groupthink. All right, go.
The mainstream media has historically tried to balance left and right in its political coverage and present what it views as a reasonable center.
Telling both sides of a controversial story.
Funny he would turn to Walter Cronkite, because it turns out Walter Cronkite was a radical leftist. He decided that we needed to get out of Vietnam, whether you agree with him or not. That's not my point. My point is they took the Tet Offensive, in which the North Vietnamese and the Viet Cong, some of you young folks probably don't even know who they were, put this massive offensive up against the United States and South Vietnamese military, and they were pushed back. They were actually defeated in that battle, even though it was a brutal battle. When Walter Cronkite was done reporting on it, you would have thought we lost. You would have thought we lost. So turns out he was not in the center at all, but go ahead.
Now that may sound good in theory, but the old politics no longer exists, and the former labels left versus right are outdated. Today, it's democracy versus authoritarianism.
Oh, it's democracy versus authoritarianism. Well, he's close. When it comes to authoritarianism, that's him and them, the American Marxists. What he's going to try and say, that's us. That's us. You watch these riots 2 summers ago. You watch the threats now, even in Kenosha, Black Lives Matter, Antifa, other radical leftists. You see what they're doing in Congress, how they want to turn the Constitution on its head, so there are very few limits, no separation of powers. You see how they want to centralize authority, how they want to destroy state authority when it comes to elections, and on and on and on. It's an amazing thing that you can be, your head can be so scrambled, like this guy Reich. They actually aren't even using the language right. You're calling white black and black white. Go.
Voting rights versus white supremacy. There's no reasonable center between these positions, no justifiable compromise. Equating them is misleading and dangerous.
When they say there's no fault of the left.
It's Meet the Press, fretting about the direction of the party.
You hear the mainstream media say, for example, that certain, quote, Republican and Democratic lawmakers are emerging as troublemakers within their parties, unquote. These reports equate Republican lawmakers who are actively promoting Trump's big lie that their 2020 election was stolen.
Whoa. For years, it's not the mainstream media. It is a propaganda operation. They pushed Russia collusion for years. They colluded with the Hillary Clinton campaign in the DNC. They colluded with the FBI and other federal law enforcement and intelligence agencies. They colluded with the Obama administration. They colluded to try and take out candidate Trump, then President-elect Trump, then President Trump, for years with this Russia collusion issue, which we knew all along was a fraud, and which now the entirety of the country and the world knows was a fraud. It was paid for, that dossier, by Hillary Clinton's campaign. They tried to divert attention from her criminality, her obstruction of justice, her perjury, her destruction of emails and software. You might remember all that. And that's what she did. They paid for this dossier. They washed it through the law firm of Perkins Coie, a Democrat firm. This guy, Michael Sussman, one of the lawyers for that firm, has since been indicted. The Russian, who became, I guess, an American citizen of some sort, who worked for Brookings Institute, was the entire source. He had no information whatsoever. The media went with the dossier. The FBI pushed the dossier. Comey met with candidate Trump, President-elect Trump, you'll remember, before he was sworn in, to talk to him about aspects of the dossier, basically to threaten him and let him know that the FBI had this hammer over his head. Then we had a criminal investigation related to it with the Mueller clowns and prosecutors. So he's talking about the media, the unequal media, that they are too harsh on the left, and the troublemakers in the Republican Party. You got to be kidding me. Go ahead.
With Democratic lawmakers who are fighting to extend health care and other programs to help people. But these are not equivalent.
They're not equivalent. They were fighting just to extend health care, to take care of the people. They're compassionate, not the right-winger white supremacists. No. That's right. Tlaib, when she speaks anti-Semitism. Omar, when she speaks anti-Semitism. AOC, when she speaks anti-Semitism, when they embrace Hamas, a terrorist group recognized as such even by our own State Department, when they attack the United States of America constantly and defend communist China. That's right. These are just people who want to help Americans. These are just people who want more benefits for people. They're compassionate, unlike these right-wingers. You know, they're white supremacists. By the way, is he a white supremacist? He's white. He doesn't even understand critical race theory. The moron doesn't even understand that he's part of the dominant white culture under critical race theory, under this Marxist agenda. It doesn't matter how righteous or self-righteous, in his case, that he is. It doesn't matter how much he claims to defend minorities and so forth. He's part of the white dominant society, but this moron doesn't get it. Go.
Trump's big lie is a direct challenge to American democracy.
Oh, it's a direct challenge to American democracy. Woe is me, woe is me. No, the Democrat Party is a direct challenge to the American country and democracy since its founding. I mean, it's the Democrat Party that promoted slavery. It's the Democrat Party that was party of the Confederacy. That seems to me to have challenged and threatened democracy, republicanism, but I'll play his game. It's the Democrat Party that pushed for Plessy versus Ferguson and separate but equal that went on all the way to the 1950s till Brown versus Board of Education. It's the Democrat Party that stood in the schoolhouse doors to prevent little black kids from going to school with little white kids. It's the Democrat Party that pushed all these agendas, Jim Crow, literacy tests, poll taxes, and everything they could do to prevent blacks from voting. That's right. It's the Democrat Party in 1924 with the White Hoods that was marching through New York City, Manhattan of all places, Madison Square Garden, where they were holding their convention, and we're still promoting what? Lynching. Wow. Republican parties have never supported any of this. So when they talk about white supremacy, they're talking about themselves. When they're talking about reparations, they should pay for it, the Democrat Party. Go ahead.
Even if you disagree with providing Americans better access to health care, it's not going to destroy our system of government. You also hear that
Wait a minute. Better access to health care is not going to destroy our system of government? Oh, I see. Destroying the Electoral College, that will. Destroying separation of powers, well, that might. Destroying the independence of the Supreme Court, constantly threatening to pack the court, well, that could destroy it. Trying to eliminate the filibuster so there's no way to stop their agenda if they have a one-vote majority in the Senate and one-vote majority in the House. Well, that could destroy it too, I'd say. Open borders where a country doesn't have its own its own sovereign landmass, I think that could destroy any society. There's not one that has survived that's ever had open borders. I see. Massive redistribution of wealth undermining our capitalist system. Well, that could destroy our society too. Critical race theory? Yep, that too. Lack crit? Yep, that too. There's a lot they push that could destroy our society. Go.
Sides are gripped by equally dangerous extremism.
Both the radical right and the left.
Growing trend of far-right extremism.
The rise of left-wing mobs.
Far-right terrorists.
Labeling them radical left and radical right suggests that the responsible position somehow is between these so-called extremes. Can we get real? One side is trying to protect and preserve voting rights. The other side...
Oh, I see. I see. Drop boxes, signatures on ballots that are mailed in that are not having to be authenticated. I got it. 16 and 17-year-olds can register to vote under their proposal. Oh, that's just because they want everyone to vote. Oh, I see. People being able to vote without voter ID. Oh, yeah, that's another good one. People can vote in any precinct in the state. They don't have to vote in any particular precinct. Oh, that's not mischievous. No, not in the least. And on and on and on. Who are they kidding? They want to destroy the voting system. That's what they want to do. And then when they win and they get the votes, then they don't care who voted for them. They don't care about the public. Then they want to use the institutions of the bureaucracy to impose their will on us. Anybody heard of the OSHA mandates lately? Go.
Is trying to suppress votes under the guise of election integrity.
I see. Suppressing votes means requiring people to demonstrate they are who they say they are. Ensuring they vote once. Ensuring they have a right to vote, that they're a United States citizen. That's now suppressing votes. And not only that, suppressing minority votes. You know, there have been real journalists have gone into these various communities, asked various questions against the American Marxist narrative, and one of them, Ami Horowitz, he went into a community, I think it was the Bronx, and he specifically spoke to African-American individuals and asked them if they thought voting ID was racist. And they mocked him, and they looked at him and said, what are you talking about? Well, is it difficult to get a vote, you know, an ID? And they said no. And they were pulling out their licenses and pulling out other forms of identification and so forth. This is a ruse created by the Democrat Party in Washington, D.C., created by their phony pseudo-intellectuals, created by radical left white Marxists, and created by radical left minority critical race theory scholars. If you want to vote, there's no way to stop you from voting. And you even have the 1965 Civil Rights Act, often called the Voting Rights Act. And there's a provision in that act that stands to this day. If somebody has prevented you from voting because of your race, you have a federal cause of action. Federal. Where are all these federal causes of action? I don't see them, do you? If they exist, the media aren't reporting them, and Robert Reich isn't commenting on them. Go ahead.
But there isn't and never was a problem of election integrity. The whole issue of election integrity in the 2020 election was manufactured by Donald Trump and his big lie about voter fraud.
No, actually, part of it was clearly obvious. I know people like Reich and so forth are not big fans of the Constitution and the men who wrote it, the men who adopted it. I'm a very big fan of the Constitution. It enables him to say what he wants to say without recourse. And one of the aspects of that Constitution, as you know, because you've been watching Levin TV for a long time now, provides federal Constitution that the state legislatures, that's in there specifically, that they make the election laws by which we choose electors for president and vice president of the United States. Now, again, keep in mind, they oppose the whole elector system, right? They oppose the Electoral College, unless they win. Then you don't hear them whining about the Electoral College. But when they lose, like they did in 2000, George W. Bush, and they claimed back then that he stole that election. Al Gore said he stole that election. The Democrats are saying over and over again, he stole the election. But don't worry, they're worried about election integrity, and they're worried about the people supporting the election process. They supported Russia collusion. No, it's Trump. Trump's the one destroying democracy. You see, not the Democrat Party, which has been destroying it really since its founding. But in any event, when you look at this, you can see what they're up to. They're up to no good, and they're up to propaganda. Go.
If you count the legal votes, I easily win. If you count the illegal votes, they can try to steal the election from us.
And was bought and propagated.
All right, hold on now. Do you folks remember before the election, we did some programming on this, both here and on Fox. You remember before the election, they kept talking about mysteriously disappearing mailboxes? Remember that? Remember that, Mr. Producer? What happened to these mailboxes? Trump is in charge of the Postal Service. He appoints the Postmaster General. And they wanted to know what was happening, particularly in the minority communities. Mailboxes were disappearing, and the Postmaster General said, nothing's disappearing. We do an evaluation if people are actually using the mailbox, so we don't have to send our mailmen and our mailwomen and our mail women transitioning or whatever to the boxes because it's a waste of time. It's inefficient. We're trying to control our costs. So we remove mailboxes. Sometimes we put other mailboxes in other areas based on population changes and usage. No. And they went on with this on these news programs, and I was trying to rebut it, you might recall. So they were creating that impression. When it came to these voting machines, it was the news media that was talking about, and the Democrats that were talking about the fact that these machines were said in some respects to be unreliable. They're the ones that were reporting that even before the election. They're the ones that. But back to my point, it is unconstitutional under the federal Constitution for governors, for secretaries of states, for boards of election, for state courts, even federal courts, to change the election procedure whereby state legislatures have passed statutes or amended their constitutions and set up a process whereby electors are chosen. That is, the people vote in a state on a presidential and vice presidential election. That's been the position over 250 years. And so here's my point to you. Why is it that I bring this up all the time, and it's the one issue that the American Marxists in the media, in the Democrat Party, and academia will not debate? They will not discuss it. They won't even write about it because I'm right and they're wrong. And that involved many of these states. So even putting aside the ballots, the machines, putting aside Zuckerberg and the harm he created with $417 million, a billionaire, basically controlling the state, county, and local voting systems by giving grants to assist these offices, but they had to follow certain requirements, and they all work together because they're there trying to elect more Democrats, putting more boxes in Democrat areas, get out the vote in Democrat areas, all that. This was what the state, county, and local Democrat parties and officials were doing all through 2020. And we know that Mark Elias, one of the people behind the most aggressive movement to litigate and try and change the state laws to accommodate Biden and the Democrats, had millions and millions of dollars of dark money behind him. I didn't report this. I just repeated it. Other people have noticed this and have reported this, real journalists and so forth. So when they say the voting hoax, the voting this, the voting that, maybe the president, maybe some of the people don't have it exactly right, but things took place. Whether it was the federal Constitution, whether it was Zuckerberg and others and so forth, that should not have taken place. That's the truth. Go.
Propagated by the Republican Party. Today's Republican Party is behind what historians regard as the biggest attack on voting rights since Jim Crow.
As historian, the biggest attack on voting rights since Jim Crow. This is why Robert Reich won't come on this program. He won't come on my radio program. He won't come on my Fox program. He says he has an exclusive with CNN, whatever that means. Because I would go through every one of these states and ask him what they have in common with Jim Crow. These Republican states that have changed their electoral systems back from pre-virus, they've taken the electoral systems they have and they've moved it to post-virus, thereby changing what took place during the virus. See, the election system was changed, at least the argument was ostensibly, because people didn't want to leave their homes, they didn't want to gather, so, we're going to do different things and so forth. Just this time, but now they want to enshrine it and expand it because it's much more difficult to determine who's voting and who's not. So let me ask you a question. If you're proposing a bill that says 16 and 17-year-olds should be able to register to vote, that doesn't mean they have to vote. Why are you doing that? What's the point of that? If in your bill you also propose eliminating voting ID, and the Democrats demand you walk around, of course, with valid vaccine passes, They're not against you having passes, keeping data on you, and all the rest. But why in this one instance are they opposed to you having voting ID? Some kind of ID. Think about it. Is it to promote voting? Why is it that in the bill that they proposed that you're not allowed to challenge anybody's vote? And if you challenge their vote, even if you're an election judge at a precinct, you could be charged criminally. Does that make sense to anybody? Why do they prevent states that are supposed to be the tip of the spear when it comes to voting, why do they prevent states under their proposed legislation from cleaning their voting rolls, including of dead people, people who might be registered more than once in different precincts because they move and so forth? Why would they do that? Why would they even take the extraordinary step of saying any judge who rules in disfavor, that is, against this law in some respect or so forth, that judge might have to appear before a special commission, an independent commission that's set up to explain him or herself. Isn't that unbelievable? Why is it that every case that's brought challenging this law must be brought in the District of Columbia? Because the Democrats control the courts there? I can go on with their law. Is that about opposing voting suppression or destroying all guardrails when it comes to voting? Why would you support these things? Why is the Democrat Party so corrupt? You know, it wants IDs when it comes to all kinds of things. It talks about taxes. It talks about, as I said, medical procedures. They want to keep data on parents who dare to challenge administrators and so forth. They're now tagging them like they're terrorists, keeping them in a database. But if somebody shows up to vote, can we see your driver's license? Oh my God, that's suppression. Oh my God, that's aimed at minority. No, everybody has to say, no, you don't understand. These people are diabolical. That's what I understand. Go.
But the media frames this as a right versus left battle.
All right, that's enough. Well, he's right in one sense. It's not right versus left. Under American Marxism, it's oppressor versus oppressed. And you see, those of us who support this country, regardless of our race, our religion, our backgrounds, or what have you, we're the oppressors because America sucks according to these people. Has Robert Reich ever done one of these clips embracing the founding? No. Embracing our economic system? No. Embracing the great American progress we've made over the centuries? No. Embracing our military? No. Embracing law enforcement? No. Has he ever done anything like that? No. Come to think of it, does any Democrat? No. Biden? No. You see, they're in constant attack mode because the Democrat Party cannot survive unless there's tumult. The Democrat Party cannot survive unless we're at each other's throats. The Democrat Party cannot survive if we view each of us as individual human beings with free will who are to be left alone. The Democrat Party needs fighting, it needs jealousy, it needs hatred, it needs division, it even needs violence. Mostly peaceful violence, mind you, but violence nonetheless. And they need a constant state of emergency, constant state of hate, and a constant state of attacking this country. That is a party that has never embraced Americanism. It's embraced slavery, segregation, separatism. It's embraced all kinds of hideous ideologies. It has embraced what it calls democratic socialism, actually Marxism. When will it embrace Americanism? Never.